Welcome into a Tuesday edition of the Husker247 Podcast. I'm Michael Bruntz, joined by Brian Christopherson. A big show on hand today. Lots to kind of break down from what we saw in the limited media viewing window before practice on Tuesday, a rainy Tuesday here in Lincoln. We'll also get into the departure of Tyke Hayes and if that really means all that much to Nebraska's running back room. And finally, now that we have everybody's favorite preseason polls out, Brian Christopherson will discuss some sneaky tough games not involving ranked teams on Nebraska's schedule, of which there are many. So we'll get into that as well. But first off, Brian, how are things going? Have you caught your breath from a busy day of football fall camp coverage?
A lot of intel over there. No, I'm kidding. That seems to be a popular word nowadays. But no, it was good. We had 25 minutes or so of camp watching, and you were kind of a competitor to me this time because usually you just send me with my little iPhone and I'm shooting video, and it's just my video we're using, and you're taking photos. And today I see you out there with your little camera flexing. Yeah. And and you got your sights and sounds up already on the site. People can check out. Mine's nowhere to be found yet. So I'm feeling the heat a little bit from you expanding your skill set like that.
Well, it's your kind of expertise takes time. So there's no. I'm over here smoking cigarettes, and you're taking a long drag on a nice cigar. That's the difference there.
Oh, I don't know. Yours looked pretty good. Yours is like when they were doubting Spielberg with Jaws that he was going to be able to pull it off, and then you see it, you're like, by golly, the guy's got the right stuff, I guess. So
he's got the special sauce.
Yeah.
Do we want to get into what we saw today when we were not jockeying for space on the sidelines?
Yeah, we can do that. I thought the best part, we were kind of in the same space, I think, it was a great drill. You're getting a one-on-one O-lineman against a D-lineman or an edge rusher. Running back had to feel his way outside or inside of the block, accelerate, and then you had the safety back there with Tyler Yelk. He had 3 or 4 of his guys waiting one by one to hit the fit right, basically, and time it right. They didn't actually tackle the guy. But thinking about what we've talked about so often with like the explosives this defense allowed and getting that part right on the back end, I just thought it was a great drill because you're able to watch. It was like 3 great things happening at once. You're able to see like linemen sort of work their technique. You're able to watch how a running back sort of felt it. And then if he was able to put his foot in the dirt, I think Mekhi Nelson maybe has a little bit more burst in the field. That's my quick take on that. Mm-hmm. Jamal Rule looked good to me too, though, as a young guy. But then the safety's coming up and sort of trying to get it right. So I like that drill. It was fun. You had good video on it. We'll have some more video on it, perhaps. So that was one thing to me. How about you? Something that stood out to you?
Yeah, I was over a little bit by the tight ends. Marcus Satterfield was coaching them hard. Like I've noticed that in both of the
yes.
Both of the open viewing periods that he's not letting mistakes linger. Like they're being corrected, and they're being corrected rather loudly. Typically with colorful language, I think is also probably fair to say, I think. But, that group, I'm eager to see what they can be because it feels like there's been a challenge kind of thrown down to that group. Basically get up to where Luke Lindenmeyer's at right now, where we're going to start giving some of your snaps to other players. We're going to, run the 10 personnel and put Quinn Clark out there. Or you're going to see, somebody like, Janarian Bonner in there getting a lot of the work too. And so that was an interesting group to kind of follow both times because it feels like there's been a lot of emphasis placed on getting those younger guys up to speed a little bit. Did you make it down by the wide receivers and the quarterbacks in the little time that we had?
I was by the receivers more so than the QBs. The QBs had vacated and went to their own space at that point. But definitely there's that four that has separated themselves. And I think Quinn, it's safe to say, is in that four now, Quinn Clark. Mm-hmm. And he walks with some confidence to him. Like you know how sometimes you just see like it's different for a guy, like when you watch him in drills, like even if it's just an individual drills where you don't want to make too much of it, but you're like, that guy like feels like he belongs now, you know, like with the top crew, and sort of carries himself that way. I feel like Quinn Clark is in that category of guy over there now. And just the way he hits the drills, very explosive, you know, looks good, looks the part, definitely has added to his speed. So, yeah, that group impressed me with the top four. I'm curious to see if, you know, Cortez Mills and Keelan Smith can get involved there. I do like how they're holding each other accountable and you know, picking each other up too, like literally in one case, like Keelan Smith, it was kind of slippery because it was raining and he did a drill and fell down, and he got, you know, the veterans in the group are kind of speaking up like, you know, let's get it. Let's do it again. And he came back and got it right the second time. So it's kind of interesting to watch some of the little things like that. And then the offensive line, I probably killed half my time just watching that group, and Jeep and Lonnie. And we can get into it more, but I mean, at the press conference, you know, he's not looking for just 5. He wants 8. He wants a rotation that's deep and where he can move some guys in to help out. And obviously, he's got at least 6, I think, now with Gunnar Katula coming on the way he is. We saw Tree Babalade was out today in the yellow jersey. But you'd have 6 with that. Tyler Knack's a 7th, and an interesting name that was dropped during the press conference, a young guy he likes, is Gibson Pyle, who was coming on last year prior to his injury. So O-line continues to be a group that you like the look of it on the practice field in August, and you're just sort of hoping that translates now in 18 days and beyond.
Yeah, you and I always kind of tongue-in-cheek joke about this, about how, you know, you say you've got 8 guys at wide receiver who are going to help you, and then you get to late October and it's closer to 4 or 5. I mean, even it feels like to me like this group is a little bit of an exception to that, where even the young guys, like I mean, they're not going to have to rely on Nayland Scott most likely this year, but I mean, he's a guy that looks ready to go if they needed to. I mean, he's 6'2". I think he's listed at like right around 200 pounds. You know, that kind of depth in that room is present. And then you add guys like, you know, Bonner, who kind of goes back and forth between the tight ends and the wide receivers. You know, I could see where you would have a pretty healthy rotation of guys in that group that you can trust. And I think until you kind of see guys just running routes and going through, taking turns, you know, it is a pretty solid-looking group, and you'd have to feel fairly confident about if you're Dana Holgorsen that you're going to be able to get some stuff done down the field this year.
Yeah, I think they're really hopeful about it. I feel like Dana Holgorsen's got a little bit of a jolt to him with just his quarterback, and, you know, how they have seemingly upgraded on the O-line and just what they can get done on some stuff that maybe wasn't available to them a season ago. Now, we'll see if they can prove that out. I think they were like 58th, 59th in yards per play or something like that, or scoring offense. And so you'd love to see that climb a couple rungs. But, you know, when you see them out on the field, you can nod your head to the idea like they had a good offseason, and that you always hear about Corey Campbell and Kristen Coggan, like that a lot got done with that. And it kind of looks that way as far as just body types and everything running around you. And, you know, then it's going to come down to, though, is that going to translate when it's 3rd and 2 this year? Like, is that's what we're waiting to see? And we're getting to that point where you're kind of anxious to see it. But you do go over to the practice, and I think kind of come away thinking like, well, it looks like a good football team, at least coming off the bus type of team. They looked the part in that way, and now can they execute as you want them to beat somebody that people don't think they're going to beat this year.
I mean, Matt Rule said it with the BTN guys. I mean, he said he feels like this is his most talented team. Do you buy that? Are you falling in line behind him on that?
Yeah, I would say so, because I think definitely on the offensive line and definitely at wide receiver. Quarterback, we'll see. But there's 2 spots on offense where you could say yes. I'm not as worried about the running backs as some people. I'm not saying they're going to have someone as good as Emmett Johnson by any means. But I think the combination of guys, you can figure it out. And if the O-line, we've said this a lot, if the O-line is actually like really a strength, the running backs connected to that will look good. I think for the most part, they haven't guys who are at least capable of running behind good line play. And then I think when you look at the defense, the linebackers, you'd say, are elevated with more options available to them than we've probably seen most of the Rule era, right? And then secondary, I would say that's up for debate still. They got to prove it. But, D-line, that's the one where I probably wouldn't just say that yet, because I think back to like 2 years ago and some of the guys they had, and I don't know that you could say they're in that category, or you're as confident as they were with that group. But I think he's probably right when you go through like every position group and think about it, to say that there's at least half or more than half where it would seem like it's even, or you feel better about it going into the year.
Kind of a large run through of guys today. You mentioned Jeep Wade came up and talked a little bit. Brett Maher, Corey Brown, a few linemen, both on offense and defense, came through. Any big takeaways for you? You mentioned the Gibson Pyle thing. That's a fairly new name. Just as somebody that's kind of, I think there's been a little bit of quiet buzz about in the past, but coming off of that injury, you didn't really know where he was. But do you feel like they're closer to having 8 than they are to having 6 at this point?
Yeah, I think so. He said they're not there yet, but that's a plan, and he likes how that plan is coming along. And if you count, Tyler Kanak in there, you'd say they have 7. And then it's just a matter of like, who is the eighth type of guy, whether that's Pyle or a Sam Sledge or, Claude and Puma, working with the 2s at left tackle already as a first-year freshman. I think what's nice about it is like Brendan Black is your right guard, but they're giving him reps at center in case, sort of like if you're in a pinch. And then Gatula can be your right tackle, but like if you wanted to move him to right guard if someone's injured, or you just wanted to spell Brendan Black or somebody, like he's capable of going inside. And so the point of, if you can get to 8, it sounds good to just say that, but also if you have a versatile 8, you're able to really kind of play with the pieces in a way that can be very effective. And if there is an injury, you hate to think about it, but if there is, you ideally feel like you have guys capable who have played at enough different positions, and frankly, they have. Like Gatula's played on both sides of the line now already in his career. So you would think like if you had to, like he could move over to the other side and stuff like that. I mean, they have options if within that 8 possibly. So I think it's trending right. O-line's been the group people have been most optimistic about probably all off season. And I think there's probably some even beefed up feeling about it by the fact that Gatula's come back and be, having the type of camp he has for the first week. That adds another layer to it. I'm not as sure like as I was 2 weeks ago. I think we would have just said we know who the starting 5 will be. September 5th. I'm not as sure at right tackle now. But I liked Wade's answer that he kind of turned that into like, I'm looking for 8, like we got to have that cohesive group where we can have different options available.
Yeah. And I don't know that that's just, injury related with Babalade being limited. I mean, I think Gatula has probably had a pretty strong camp, almost as much as anybody on that roster right now.
Well, it seemed like Dana, when Gatula came up with Dana, or he might have even just brought him up the other day, I can't remember. He was kind of bursting to talk about him, it felt like. So he looks good. Like he's added strength. He said like when he was injured, he really focused on putting on good weight. And Holgerson talked about how fast he is, like getting down the field and stuff like that. So might be a guy who's tough to keep off the field, it's a good situation to have. I mean, when Nebraska's been really good, they've had that situation on the O-line where the 6th or 7th guy is also darn good. It just so happens you can only play 5 at a time, so hopefully they can get to that. But Jeep Wade, you can see why players kind of gravitate toward him. He's certainly like he's got like real juice that's not like manufactured. Like when he's up front, like he's interesting to listen to. Clearly loves his guys, but also, yeah, it's not like a put on. It's very like real, like sort of how he just answers the questions and sort of has that energy about his room and offensive line play in general.
Yeah, for sure. And I don't know. I mean, that's a room that I think you need to be able to win over quickly. You have to generate cohesiveness. For all the faults of the previous lines. I mean, I think the togetherness was one thing that players talked a lot about over the last few years. So him being able to come in and do that quickly, I think speaks to some of the magnetism there that he brings. Anything else that we need to hit on from today before we move on to our next topic?
No, you got most of it. We'll have a lot of stuff on the web, and I'm about to go through Brett Maher, and there'll be detailed stuff on just like, his approach. I think he's really taking seriously the role he now has as a coach of being able to adapt on the fly. And I think that's something I heard him bring up in like the radio interview. And he mentioned again today, like when Matt Rule throws change ups at coaches and players in practices, he like appreciates that because it's sort of like challenging his brain to get into that game day coaching mode where it's like, okay, what if this doesn't go exactly to plan? What are we doing then? And so I think he's, as a newer guy to that role, kind of processing that right now. And he sort of spoke about that, which was interesting. And then Corey Brown, I would say, Bruntz, that Corey Brown, of all the coaches we've ever covered, nobody's like gets more like inside baseball and like technique and actually like talking about like the terms of it and stuff as he does. And he kind of takes you along like you actually know what he's talking about, which some of them in the room might and some of the listeners might. And then there's guys like me who are like, okay, I'll figure that out, after I look it up and stuff. But, like he has like the way he talks about D-line play, he doesn't dummy it down to the audience, which I would need, but I appreciate it. It's like he's a technique guy. And Matt Rule said, I want to hire a guy, techniques matters there. He had some options to choose from and some good options. But I can understand the appeal of Corey Brown. And because every time we've heard him talk, it's just like, it all gets very technical in a hurry. And that's, I think, sort of what they need over there.
For sure. He's going to have a lot of eyes on that group over the next few weeks, and certainly the first couple games of the season. We'll go into a new topic quickly, Brian. Tyke Hayes, former Penn State running back, briefly Iowa Western running back, briefly Nebraska running back, dismissed from the team this week. No longer part of that rotation or group at running back. What? Give me your reaction to that one. I don't think it moves things around too much there, to be honest.
not from where it was going into the season. I mean, you heard Dana, was it Friday when he was talking to us? And it was clear that Tyke was just, trying to figure it out, like here, like sort of what's required and what making an adjustment to it. And there was a definite separation with at least 3 of the guys. I would say probably 4 or more guys, honestly. Like Quentin Ives even should get thrown in there, and Connor Booth gets mentioned. I think probably more than Tyke Hayes was getting mentioned this camp, and Vince Genatone for that matter. No, I don't think it shakes things up too much. Like, I mean, we can be real about the fact, like when he was added, and I'm sure we did the podcast on it, that we liked it. It's just like, why not add to the competition, and if it takes off, that's great. But I don't know. I don't think we ever got like too far on the hype machine on him. Like, we were just kind of curious about how it would work and like where he would fit right away. And I think he's got some talent because he was a guy who was vying for to try to be the 3rd string guy last year at Penn State. He wasn't, I don't know that he really was that, but he was at least in the conversation. So he might end up having a really good career somewhere. Sometimes it happens like that. Guy bounces around and he finds his stride. But it was not a guy who, like, it wasn't like a week or so in, I was hearing a lot about him. You know what I mean? Like or even like a few days in, I never got the sense like, oh, it's about to really just take off. Like, it just always seemed like he was trying to get adjusted, and he never did, apparently.
Yeah. I mean, I actually think the framing of it from Matt Rule in Chicago in July was probably pretty, on the mark. I mean, they needed a guy. They kind of treated it like an NFL free agency situation where you go get a guy in July. And I'm like you, I don't know how much the needle was really moved there in terms of shaking up the competition at running back, at least over the first, 9 or 10 practices of fall camp. I mean, I think it was pretty chalky in terms of what that top group was versus, before going into fall camp and then when he left.
I think people are getting more trained too in this era of college football to just like things, guys come and go, and it gets processed easier than it used to be. Like, it's not, I don't know. I don't feel like it's as dramatic as it was, a couple years back when like a certain guy would leave or something and it was a big deal and it'd get talked about for a few days on the radio and stuff like that. We hardly really knew him. We didn't know him very well. So it just makes it one of those where it's like, it didn't work, then you kind of move on. I don't think it really, it's certainly not a case though, where they're like in scramble mode or anything like that. Like, he just wasn't like at this point, it is definitely fair to say he wasn't close enough to the top 3, at least to even like make it a thing where you're like, just like, oh man, that's a blow, Yeah. You can't say that.
Most definitely. The other news from the week, I guess somewhat news. I don't believe it's really news. You can differ in your opinion there, but AP poll came out, preseason AP poll. Love preseason polls. hate preseason polls. You can shoot them into the sun as far as I'm concerned. But we've got an AP poll. We've got a lot of Big Ten teams represented in that poll, as you would expect. A lot of teams on Nebraska's schedule represented in that poll, including Ohio State, Oregon, Indiana. Also, am I missing here?
Washington and Iowa.
Thank you. Those are teams that I think, just based on everything, you probably could have, had an idea of where they would fall ultimately in the preseason poll. But of the teams that are not represented in that poll, Brian, which is the one that kind of gets your attention the most?
Probably the common answer, and I think I'd say it's the right answer, is Illinois. Like, Illinois was probably, I don't know if you have the others receiving votes, but they might have got a couple votes, huh? Did they? A couple points at least? I don't know. They're sort of Illinois is like in that same category Nebraska is in most of the preseason like ratings where like if people go like 40 deep, you find them somewhere between 31 and 40 basically. And that's Nebraska and Illinois sort of sharing space. Interestingly, their QB, whose name is escaping me now, Caden Hauser. He also shares space like on a lot of the preseason rankings with Calandria. Like they're grouped about in the same category by a lot of people. And so maybe this gets tilted one way or the other by the quarterback, like who has the special sauce, as you said at the start of this, as we bring it back home. Like you have the special sauce as a videographer, and which quarterback has that on November 7th or whenever they play. That could be all the difference. But Illinois to me is the answer. How about you?
9 votes. 9 votes for Illinois.
Okay.
So
Nebraska had none in that, by the way. So Nebraska had what, 13, 14 points, which maybe Matt Rule voted for him, like he could have, like that in the coaches poll. But in the AP poll, they had no points. And so, I think Illinois, though, to the question you ask, is the answer that I would give. But there's some good options there. Like I think Maryland is not going to be like a 7-win team or anything, but I think they can be dangerous on a given week because of Malik Washington. Like I think he could be the type of quarterback where you'll see like some Big Ten game where he'll throw for like 405 yards, and it's like a shootout. And you just hope it's not the game against the team you like, basically, because I think they're capable of that.
Can I sell you on Rutgers?
Yeah, you could.
Just where it falls on the schedule, you've got you're going back across the country. It's November in Piscataway. The weather is going to be fantastic, and it's going to be one of those games that tests the things that Nebraska has not done with enough consistency over the last few years. It's going to be, can you match Rutgers in special teams? Can you win the turnover battle? And can you win like what you would probably consider a tough, physical Big Ten type game? I mean, that to me is the challenge there. And for a team that's talked, quite a bit already about how do you win in November, there it is. Like that's the difference between, having to sweat a bowl game and feeling okay, I think, about where things are at.
You could talk for a full off season, and we almost do sometimes, about that stretch between Washington, black uniform game on Halloween, the trip to Illinois on Friday, right? Friday night for that one.
Yep.
And then the trip to Rutgers. Like that 3-week stretch. We'll know plenty by then because you'll have 7 games of data and you'll have seen Nebraska play like 2, maybe top 5 teams. You would have seen how they handle their first Big Ten road game, which we have given all the respect to the Michigan State game and how vital it is for this program. But I think Rutgers is a fair team to bring into the discussion because they've got a couple really high-end guys. They've got a few higher-end type talents that they're really excited about that they don't always have at Rutgers. And also, I'm kind of curious, like last year they were sort of out of Greg Schiano form in the sense that they were kind of in these wild, games with a lot of fireworks. Like I remember they played Iowa on a Friday night and they were just like going up and down the field on each other. And it was like, up is down, down is up, watching those two teams light up the scoreboard. And I remember Schiano, it was at Media Days or something where he said obviously he takes a lot of pride in being like kind of a defensive minded, like that type of team. And they've, I think, looked in all the cupboards about how they sort of fix that side of the ball. And so I'm curious what they came up with. Like whatever you have to say about him, I think he's a guy who he gets his teams to play hard. I mean, remember the game in Lincoln a few years ago? Like Nebraska won it like 14-7, but it was just like a street fight, like the whole game. Like neither offense could do anything, but that was like a Schiano type team to me. So I'm curious if his defense, now that they kind of found some offense, if the defense can sort of catch back up.
Yeah, it's felt like too every time Nebraska's played there, whether however much of an advantage Nebraska has athletically, talent, whatever, it always just seems to kind of be like you said, like a 4-quarter back alley type brawl, and I think that's the way they like it there. So that was kind of where Illinois, I think, is the pretty obvious answer, but I think Rutgers has to be right there too, because that 3-game stretch is huge.
Has Nebraska lost at Rutgers? They've done well there. They've come out on top because they won the game with Mickey that one year. Mm-hmm. They almost fumbled the victory formation snap when Rutgers was trying their Schiano tricks to get under the
dive.
Yeah. But they didn't fumble. And they won one with Mike Riley out there, I remember. And then they won the Scott Frost game.
Champions Week.
Yeah, that's Champions Week. It sure felt like it during the COVID season with the running back who went on to the Chiefs and won Super Bowls, probably because he was inspired by what happened that night in Piscataway when he was on the short end of the Huskers on Champions Week.
That was the season finale that year. That's where it ended in New Jersey.
Yeah. Pacheco, that's who I'm thinking of.
Yep. Well, that's a couple sneaky ones on the schedule, non-AP top 25 teams. Anything else, Brian, before we get out of here?
Not from me, no.
All right. Well, we have plenty more from Brian at Husker247. For a limited time, Husker60, code Husker60, your promo code Husker60 gets you 60% off your first year at Husker247. Plenty from today going into the week as fall camp rolls on. We're quickly approaching just 2 weeks left until the start of the season, Brian. It's almost here. So get to Husker247 for all the latest. We'll be back with another podcast on Thursday.